On 5 News, dramatic new video of yesterday's terrorist attack. It captures the moment armed French police moved in to tackle 2 men who'd just murdered a priest.
Il y a des explosifs, les mecs.
In the corner of the screen, a woman reported to be a nun is rescued. But how was this man, who was tagged and on France's terror watch list, able to commit a horrific attack? We've the full story. Also this evening, latest figures show the economy sparking into life, but just before we voted to leave the EU. So what happens next? Shattering the glass ceiling, Hillary Clinton makes history as the first woman to be chosen by a major party to run for president. The new campaign to get kids spending more time outside and... Wet, 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 but worth it. How the Ice Bucket Challenge led to a medical breakthrough. Hello and welcome to 5 News. I'm Sian Williams. Last night there was revulsion at the murder of an elderly priest in a church in France. Today there's anger as it emerges that one of the suspected killers was not only known to be a terrorist threat, he was also wearing an electronic tag which was turned off. And in the past couple of hours, new video has emerged of the moment armed police moved in on the attackers. Catherine Jones reports.
This is the moment armed police began their assault, captured by a 17-year-old filming from a nearby window.
Ça a tiré. Il y a l'armée et tout.
He starts recording again, exclaiming, "There's been a shooting, there's the army and everything."
Il y a quelqu'un qui a crié Allah Akbar dans l'église, ouais.
He adds, "Someone shouted Allah Akbar in the church." Then, on the far right-hand side, officers hurry a person across the street. It appears to be one of the nuns who witnessed yesterday's atrocity. Today, with tight security still surrounding the church where a priest was slain, it's emerged one of the perpetrators was a known threat. Adel Kermiche had grown up locally, a normal teenager who'd become rapidly radicalised. The 19-year-old was twice arrested last year trying to reach Syria to join IS. He was detained for 10 months, then released pending trial for alleged membership of a terrorist organisation. He had to wear an electronic surveillance tag, but it allowed him to leave his parents' home for 4 hours each day. After his second arrest, Kermiche's mother spoke to a Swiss newspaper. The Charlie Hebdo killings acted as a detonator, she said. He was bewitched, like a cult. "I want to know who messed up our kid. We don't know where to turn for help." This local youth worker went to school with him.
À chaque fois, on le raisonnait. À chaque fois qu'on lui disait quelque chose, il nous ressortait un verset du Coran, il inventait des choses.
Every time we tried to reason with him, he would reply with some verse from the Quran. He would invent things, he says. When someone told me there was an attack, I knew it was him. His victim, Father Jacques Hamel, was filmed in 2009 at work in his parish.
Un homme de pauvreté. C'est pas rien que le Fils de Dieu.
The second man who murdered him as he was leading prayers is thought to be a 19-year-old from southeastern France, not known to the police. Today, the French president met religious leaders, but he is under severe pressure over his response to the Islamist threat. His government has announced 23,000 police and soldiers will protect major events this summer, and festivals not meeting strict security standards will be cancelled. Around popular tourist locations in the capital, Paris, there's a heavy military presence.
There's security here, gives you a bit of confidence. So yeah, I think they're doing their job. Yeah, it seems very good.
But as the community of Saint-Étienne-du-Rouvray continues to mourn its priest, there are growing calls in France for greater security at places of worship and growing anger at the apparent inability of the authorities to identify, track and contain the people inspired to commit such barbaric acts.
So those calls for increased security around churches in France, has there been any reaction here?
Well, there's no specific intelligence that
churches or any other places of worship should be targeted, is what the police say. But they have pointed out that across the country, our threat level remains at severe, which means some kind of attack is highly likely. So yes, some advice specific to churches and other places of worship has been sent out today by the police. Coincidentally, the Home Office yesterday announced £2.4 million of extra funding to beef up security at places of worship. That was part of their hate crime initiative. But of course, what all people of faith will have to consider is how do they balance that with the fact that the whole concept of ministry is to have open doors. It's going to be difficult.
Kathy, thank you. Britain's economy grew faster than expected in the run-up to the EU referendum. Figures for April to June show that GDP was up by 0.6%, largely thanks to the best performance in manufacturing since the late 90s. Analysts say after the Leave vote, the statistics aren't looking so positive. So a month on, how are businesses feeling? Charlotte Grant has been finding out.
The prediction was for doom and gloom, but today some surprising figures showing little sign of a shrinking economy. Instead, in the run-up to the EU vote, our economy actually grew by 0.6%. It's a similar story at this manufacturing company in Nottingham. They export 60% of everything they make. Post-referendum, they're surprisingly upbeat.
I did spend a lot of time moaning about it and being very despondent and embarrassed about the result, and we've had a surprising little benefit, due really, I think, to the weakness of the pound. I think the last 3 months has been absolutely brilliant, probably one of our best periods in the history of the business.
The UK growth from April to June this year has been driven by a strong performance in manufacturing, which grew by 2.1%. And the biggest sector, the services sector, also went up by 0.5%. But it's not all good news. Construction fell by 0.4%. And agriculture also suffered, dropping 1%. The Chancellor, on a tour of City Airport today, said the figures are proof of economic resilience.
Well, these second quarter figures are stronger than people expected. And I think what they tell us is that the UK economy is fundamentally strong as we go into the challenge that we face ahead. That gives us the tools and the scope to respond as the economy requires.
And he'll be buoyed by GlaxoSmithKline, today announcing a £275 million investment to expand its UK manufacturing sites. But despite all this, Labour believes today's figure shows, besides Greece, Britain's performing worse than any other major developed country. And for those that rely on exporting, a Brexit future feels uncertain.
It'll be more like dealing with the US when you're dealing with import duties and shipping taxes and forms, and I think that's basically what we'll end up with Europe, I imagine.
And that could have quite an impact?
I think it'll have an impact. I think we'll just have to work a little bit harder.
We'll have to wait to see the true impact of Brexit, but businesses hope economic activity isn't about to cool down. Charlotte Grant, 5 News.
Detectives investigating the attempted abduction of an RAF serviceman in Norfolk have issued e-fits of the 2 suspects. The men are wanted after the victim was threatened with a knife outside RAF Marham a week ago. Police say they're not ruling out any motive, including the possibility it was a case of mistaken identity. Theresa May says she's keeping an open mind about negotiations during Britain's exit from the European Union. She's paid her first visit to Italy as Prime Minister, one of a series of trips to EU countries in the wake of Brexit. And British Transport Police have released a series of videos to warn against the dangers of playing on railway lines. The clips show children trespassing on tracks, with some narrowly escaping being hit. Police say children are twice as likely to play on tracks in the summer holidays. The man challenging Jeremy Corbyn for Labour leadership set out his big ideas today, including raising taxes on the rich to help fund the NHS and giving workers more rights. But it was his comments about standing up to Theresa May that caused controversy. He said he wanted to smash her back on her heels. He later admitted to Peter Lane those words may have backfired.
Owen Smith wants to be Labour leader and one day Prime Minister. At a South Yorkshire technology park built where a coal mine once stood, he outlined his vision of the future.
Investment, not cuts. Prosperity, not austerity. Rebuilding hope and ambition for families and communities, for the nations and regions of the UK, and for our country as a whole.
But in a speech focusing much on fairness and equality, there was this about Prime Minister Theresa May's comments on social injustice.
And I'll be honest with you, it pained me that we didn't have the strength and the power and the vitality to smash her back on her heels and argue that these are our values.
Pulled up on his choice of words, he clarified that they were about ideology, of course, and not violence.
That phrase, amongst the rest of the speech, that phrase backfired, didn't it?
Well, perhaps it backfired, but we should have a bit of robust language in this politics, I think. I haven't intended to offend people. I wasn't offending people, and I'm sure most sensible people will see that very clearly.
But no apology?
Well, I don't think I've got to apologise for saying that the Labour Party should be pushing back vigorously against Tory ideology.
And this evening, an about turn, when he did apologise. As Owen Smith left today, a voice of protest from a former miner and party member.
You are not welcome, you a traitor!
Unhappy at the leadership challenge.
And Jeremy Corbyn, without this sabotage, I think would win a general election handsomely.
But in traditional Labour heartlands like South Yorkshire, the party is losing votes. Why?
They've done absolutely nothing for the working class people of this town. They've just gone against everything what everybody wanted.
I don't think they should argue.
You don't think they should argue?
No.
This leadership battle's not helping?
No.
I'm a miner, and the Labour used to be for working class, now they're not.
Owen Smith comes from a mining family himself, so knows how deep the divisions are now within Labour. He got a warm reception from invited guests today, but has a lot more people to convince in the weeks ahead. Peter Lane, 5 News.
Still to come on the programme. Hillary Clinton is officially named as the first female candidate for US president, and how these viral videos funded a breakthrough on motor neurone disease. All that and more after the break. Welcome back. You're watching 5 News. She made sure America could clearly hear the sounds of glass ceilings being shattered. Hillary Clinton made history last night, officially becoming the first woman to be nominated for US president by a major party. At the Democratic National Convention, she was given a very personal endorsement from the man who called her his best friend, husband, Bill Clinton. And as Julian Drucker now reports, there was a strong message for women and girls everywhere.
Hillary Clinton is making history, and against a backdrop of past presidents, she vowed to become the next one.
We just put the biggest crack in that glass ceiling yet. Thanks to you and to everyone who's fought so hard to make this possible.
Recent party divisions turned to devotion as Mrs. Clinton received a huge boost and took a significant step on her journey to the White House.
If there are any little girls out there who stayed up late to watch, let me just say, I may become the first woman president, but one of you is next.
This was a night of unity. Earlier, in a symbolic gesture, her former Democratic rival Bernie Sanders declared Mrs. Clinton as the party's nominee.
And I move that Hillary Clinton be selected as the nominee of the Democratic Party for President of the United States.
Bill Clinton.
Later came a more personal endorsement. This former president spoke of someone he said was uniquely qualified to now do the same job. And with warmth, he told the story of how they met 45 years ago.
In the spring of 1971, I met a girl. You should elect her. And you should elect her because she'll never quit when the going gets tough. she'll never quit on you.
Actress Meryl Streep even wore the American flag to express her enthusiasm.
What does it take to be the first female anything? It takes grit and it takes grace.
The conference hall hailed Hillary, but there are 100 arduous days till Election Day. Julian Drucker, 5 News.
2 summers ago, social media timelines were full of videos like this, people tipping buckets of water over their heads. It was all to raise money to help tackle motor neurone disease, an incurable condition that attacks nerves in the brain and the spine. Well, the craze did raise tens of millions of pounds, and now it's been announced it's helped fund its first breakthrough, as Warren Nettleford explains.
Back in 2014, celebrities like David Beckham, George W. Bush, even Kermit the Frog were joined by millions of others around the world who took part in the Ice Bucket Challenge. Ice-cold water and a camera phone were all you needed to fundraise for those living with motor neurone disease. Critics called it attention-seeking, slacktivism, but 2 years on it seems that good-natured fun has led to a medical research breakthrough. Suzanne Maguire is an author who lives with motor neurone disease. She's excited by the news.
Absolutely thrilled. It's just given me a glimmer of hope for myself and all my fellow MND sufferers. We need a break. It's our time.
Worldwide, the Ice Bucket Challenge raised almost £90 million, and that money has been spent on a variety of research projects. The one that has caught the attention of scientists has for the first time identified 4 genes that contribute to the disease.
The more we know about motor neurone disease, the more likely it is that we'll develop a successful treatment. It's a very hard nut to crack because, like all neurodegenerative diseases, it's not really clear why they happen at the moment. But the more we understand about that, the more likely it is we'll develop an effective treatment. So I'm very optimistic that we will.
MND is rapidly progressive and affects nerves in the brain and spinal cord, which stops muscles working. It eventually stops breathing. At the moment, there's no cure, but the hope is this research could help to better understand the disease. 440 million people watched Ice Bucket Challenges on Facebook. A campaign that was always intended to help others is quickly making an impact. Warren Nettleford, 5 News.
In the age of mobile phones and computer screens, it probably won't surprise you to learn that children today spend half the time their parents did playing outside. It's now down to 4 hours a week, that at least according to a survey by the National Trust, which has now unveiled what it thinks is the must-have handheld device for kids, a stick. Minnie Stevenson has the story.
We were just at the muddy bit.
Now, if you go down to the woods today, you'll find some keen explorers enjoying the great outdoors. Ever the professionals, armed with binoculars. But this is not the norm. Today, a survey's revealed that children spend only half as much time as their parents' generation did playing outside. So the National Trust have taken matters into their own hands and published a list of things you can do outdoors before you turn 11 3/4, including building dens and climbing trees. They've even got Game of Thrones star Raleigh Ritchie to wrap the advice. And this summer's must-have accessory for playtime is a versatile wooden stick.
Plant your feet in the great outdoors. The day is new and clear, so go in search of the mighty stick, Earth's unlikely hero.
Today at this woodland in West London, they're learning how to look for wild animals. So how has that gone down with our discerning explorers?
Has it been really fun?
Yeah.
Yeah, really fun?
Yeah.
What's the best thing about it?
Finding animals and using binoculars.
The binoculars are cool. Do you want to have a look through yours now? Does everybody look really big?
Yeah. I like it outdoors because it doesn't get as stuffy and it's like you feel like free and it's really fun. It's actually quite interesting because you can find animal footprints and animals. You can see lots of different outdoors mini beasts.
Mini beasts? Little animals?
As for their parents, well, the study found that 96% of them wanted their children to connect more with nature, something the National Trust is trying to encourage this summer.
I think a lot of adults and a lot of parents sometimes worry that with all the advent of modern technology, children aren't going to be interested in things that they might have done or things their parents might have done. But once you get them here, once you show them what it's all about, once you get them going, it's no problem at all, they love it.
While these miniature explorers seem very at one with nature, campaigners say they want to get many more across the UK, out of the house and in the great outdoors. Minnie Stevenson, 5 News.
Before we go, Simon's joined us to tell us what's coming up on 5 News tonight. Hello, Simon.
Hi, Sean. We'll be talking about the top story, radicalisation of children with the NSPCC. The charity's trains its advisors in how to spot the warning signs. Also, we'll be hearing from Kelly Maloney about transgender still being categorised as a mental illness by the world's biggest health organisation, and why she agrees with a new study which says it's time for a change. And that will be up 6:30.
Thank you, Simon. See you then. That is it for us for now, though. And Sean Welby has the weather next. Is it nice to be outdoors? I'll see you again tomorrow at 5. Simon's back at 6:30. Thanks for watching tonight. Goodbye for now.